This is the story of Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, kingdom builder, healer. He is the King of glory. He is the resurrecting Savior. They expected a conqueror, but instead they got a servant, crucified and lifted high. And the marks on his hands left us marked for salvation.
All right, so we're starting this new series that we call Revealed. And one of the things that we wanted to do for you as you go through the book of Mark is we wanted to offer these little midweek videos where we could just kind of touch base and go a little bit further in the passage. Some weeks we're covering multiple chapters. Some weeks we're only covering one chapter. But there is so much information in the Gospel of Mark that we don't get a chance to address on the weekend. And so that's what the devotional is for, and that's what these videos are for. And so today, as we start this series off, I have Pastor Julie with me, and I also have Molly, one of our Trellis residents. And so we're going to be talking about the very first chapter. This past weekend, we were talking about how we were introduced to the character of Jesus. And it just made me curious, when you're introduced to somebody, what are some of the things that you want to know personally?
Well, Pastor Ryan and I were just actually talking about needing to get a volunteer who was helping us. They stepped up and said that they wanted to help. And so I didn't know the person. And so I'm quizzing Pastor Ryan on, hey, well, what do we know about them? Do we think that they're really going to be there? Because if they're not going to be there, we need to step in. So sometimes you need to know certain things about people because of what they're going to be doing and how you're going to interact with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like having some background information, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's just nice to know, like, how are you even connected to this person?
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I want to know what they're passionate about, what's their interest, like just a little snapshot of who they are, because I want to know how close I want to get to them. I want to see how well I will interact. What things do we connect on? And by that, I will determine, like, if I'm going to have a really close bond with this person, or if I'm going to just have more of love you from a distance, Christ-like relationship with you.
I love how politely you put that. But it's true, right? It's like there's questions that we have in our mind about who is it that we're actually going to be interacting with.
Right.
Who is it that we're going to be connecting with? And it's interesting because the Gospel of Mark, compared to some of the other Gospels, gives us the least amount of information. And a lot of it is because I think Mark is just so excited. He is just like, it's like when you have this child that is just, they're just so thrilled. They're so excited about what happened, and they're trying to tell you, and words are getting jumbled and the story's coming out quickly, and sometimes background information is missing. And so we have to kind of fill in the details. And some of the other gospel writers, they were more concerned with that. But Mark just wanted to dive right into the meat of the issue. Mm-hmm. He's like, I just need to tell you about Jesus, and you'll figure it out as we go, which I think is kind of a fun approach. Mm-hmm. And so this past weekend, we talked about the first part of chapter 1, about John the Baptist and the baptism and the temptation and all of those things that happen in the very first part of the story of Jesus. But I want us to talk a little bit about the second part, because the second part of chapter 1, we see him beginning to call the disciples, and they start their trip together, where then they start traveling, and he's teaching and he's performing miracles. And so in that story of the calling of the disciples and some of the miracles, what are some of the things that they just kind of caught your attention or made you step back and say, that's really interesting?
I thought it was kind of interesting when Jesus walks up to two fishermen and says to fishermen, hey, I want to show you how to fish for people now. And how they were not like, why would we want to do this? This is something that we know how to do, and they've been doing it for years. So why would they want to do that? And then he goes, further and finds another set of brothers and does the same thing. And so you have two sets of brothers, all four of them being fishermen, looking for fish. And then Jesus says to them, let's not fish for fish anymore. Let's fish for people. That just seems...
What does that even mean?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that was my exact thought. It was like, well, why? Why did they just drop everything on that one statement? Like
Yeah.
that really stuck out.
Yeah.
I don't have words to even explain it. Like, I would be asking questions. I've been like, okay, I'm curious, but what's X, Y, and Z before I'd even thinking about walking away from my boat.
Right. So you want to know a little bit about the reason why.
Mhm.
And kind of my take is because they were in the presence of Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
did that allow them to feel at ease
Mm-hmm.
to do that? Because did they recognize that there was something different about him?
Mhm.
And just meeting him.
Yeah. And the Gospel of Mark doesn't give us a ton of information.
Right.
You know, if you're reading through Mark, he was baptized and then he went into seclusion for 40 days. And then the next thing he did is come and find people. They wouldn't even know who he was. Now, some of the other Gospels, we see that he was beginning to teach and people were beginning to get this understanding that there was something unique about this man.
Right.
But I'm like you, Molly. If somebody came up to me and said, hey, let's go, my first question is going to be where?
Yeah.
What do I need to bring? What are we doing?
Will there be food there?
Yeah, well, there be food there. Important questions, right?
Uh-huh. And unique it's not always a positive.
It's not.
Yeah. Somebody being unique can be, okay, they're different, and that's a negative tone.
Yeah.
But these guys were willing to drop their nets and follow him.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. That is amazing.
Well, and for me, as I was reading through this story, I got to the next part. So they drop their nets, they follow him, and I'm sitting there thinking, what are they thinking as they're walking and he's teaching, and this demon-possessed man comes up to him, and he just is like, no big deal. And he just casts the spirit out. I'm sitting there thinking that would make me pause and go, who am I following?
Like, that's like a jaw drop moment. I'm like,
Yeah.
what just happened?
Right.
What did I just sign up for? Because if this is a taste of it, this is going to be a crazy ride.
Right.
You know?
Right. And it could be good or maybe not. Like, they have to be asking a lot of questions in their mind.
yeah.
Right.
But they have to be amazed at the same time because it's not something that you see all the time. You don't see that happening.
No.
So they have to be like, he is special.
Yeah. Well, and it says that same phrase. The people were amazed. The people were amazed. Multiple times in this first chapter, the people were amazed.
Right.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is it about Jesus? Like, what is it that Mark is hoping to get across to the people that would make people want to follow him?
I think he was just so direct and intentional with people that they're just like, okay, I know exactly what you're asking of me.
Yeah, there was like this, it's like this raw authenticity that Jesus displays throughout the gospel. That he wasn't concerned with position and power and title. He just spoke truth, but not in an abrasive.
Right.
I mean, he confronted,
Right.
and he didn't minimize truth,
Right.
but there was a compassion hidden behind it.
I always say you have to have love and truth and love.
Mm.
And I think that's what he did perfectly. He could bring truth out when it might be kind of ouchy,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but he did it in such a loving way that you couldn't argue the point with him. And then you also felt like he's trying to bring you where he wants you to be.
Mm. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because then even as I'm thinking about it, like in my mind, I'm going, what is Mark trying to accomplish in this first chapter? Because he's trying to hook the reader's attention somehow. He wants them to continue the story of Jesus. He wants them to get to know this main character, because he starts by saying, this is the story. This is the good news about Jesus Christ. And so I think it's like this rapid, fast pace, because for Mark, he doesn't want to spend a lot of time on the details. He just wants to get to the places where Jesus began to change people's lives.
Mhm.
You know, just there's this element of, he didn't want to explain to people or introduce Jesus, but rather he wanted them to experience him through the story, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
You know, and kind of just be enticed about what's going to happen next. I mean, the story moves so fast. You know, John the Baptist, baptism, temptation, call the disciples, teach, cast out a demon. It's just, there's so many things happening in the first chapter. And I think he just wants the people to be like, what's next?
Right. The wow factor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
yeah,
Like, wow, this is that man, and look at what he can do. And then, haven't we all been amazed by that?
yeah.
Like, we've all seen things and we've all been amazed
Yep.
at what he does. And so,
Well, and that's like a perfect question for us to reflect on, because part of reading the Gospel of Mark is not just trying to understand it, but then think about, how does it change who I am?
mhm.
And so, you know, as I was reading through this first section and we kept coming across the phrase, the people were amazed, the people were amazed, it made me ask the question, and this would be a good question for the two of you: when or how has Jesus amazed you?
Mhm.
So that question like is somewhat hard for me, not because like, oh, I don't have anything, it's because I have so much.
Mm.
It's how do I just pick one? Like it's a daily occurrence that I'm being amazed, and I pick up things that I might not have picked up weeks ago, but like it's still God working through my life and showing me things, and it's like you just have to take a moment and be like, wow,
Mm.
I didn't even see that. And it's just constant daily awe.
That's really good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think there are these big moments that we saw in the scripture. There are these big things that we see and are amazed by. But I think with you, Molly, I'm of the opinion that it's in the little, I always say this, it's in the smallest of details that we see Jesus. It's in the smallest of things that if we are looking, and I think that to me is a point for all of us to think about, which is, what do we see Jesus doing each and every day in our life? Because he is in that. And if we don't open up our eyes to see it, we'll miss it.
Mm.
And so we got to keep our eyes open and look for those things that we just go, there is no way that anybody could have put that together but Jesus. This person coming into this conversation, that person making a phone call, this person driving here. I mean, a doctor saying, something that was just only you hearing would cause amazement. And it's all Jesus working in all those tiny details. He is in the tiniest of details. He's in the miracle working business too.
Oh, yeah.
But he's in the small things too.
Well, and that's what I love about the Gospel of Mark is, while the people were amazed at the miracles, they were also amazed in the teaching. They were also amazed in the things that he said and how that he lived, how he walked. And so it's not just in the big moments. Like you guys said, it's in those small moments where you can tell God's hand is at work, because there's no other way that you would be where you're at. So, well, I hope this has been a good launching point for you guys as you are going through the devotional. And if you're meeting as a group, I would encourage you guys, take some time, work through the table talk questions, and just kind of spend some time reflecting on this first chapter and thinking about what it is that we can learn as we begin to read through this gospel and see how Jesus is revealed.